All right, Hamilton, 25 years of experience in broadcast productions, marketing campaigns, community organizations. He builds teams, sets and achieves goals, and is known for managing creative teams. He also is known for managing expectations, which is why he was a fabulous VP of programs during Tom Bett's year. He has worked in public relations in Seattle for the last 16 years, 9 of those at Green Rubino, where he is the executive director. This is cool. Hamilton was previously a TV producer, King 5's Evening Magazine, for those over 50, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. For those under 50, Bill Nye, the Science Guy, are also on his ticket. The latter, he earned a National Emmy Award. He says nobody would be more surprised that he's been able to support himself through writing and communication than Mr. Simmons, his 10th grade English teacher from Connecticut. Hamilton, in short, is someone you want to sit next to at a dinner party. Come on up.
Thank you, Sue. One of my favorite quotes from the late, great Yogi Berra is 90% of the game is half mental. A lot of people are, Yogi's got a lot of good ones. A lot of people are gifted with pure athletic talent, but why do some succeed and others don't? Physical conditioning is a must, but what about their mental conditioning? Today's speaker will answer these questions, and for background, there's a brochure on each of your tables if you want to take a look at some more information about his consulting group. Trevor Moawad was raised in Washington State, the son of world-renowned peak performance educator, the late Bob Moawad. Perhaps some of you are familiar with his work as one of the original contributors to Chicken Soup for the Soul. Trevor was inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame at Charles Wright Academy in Tacoma, and was a 2-sport athlete at Occidental College, where he received a bachelor's in politics and his master's in education. He's combined his passion for athletics and education successfully to work with many of the world's best-known athletes and teams, including the University of Alabama and Florida State University's football teams, which has put him on the sidelines of 5 of the last 7 national championship games. I don't know what you do when they're playing one another. That'd be curious. He's a frequent contributor on ESPN, Fox Sports, USA Today, and many others. He works with Russell Wilson and many other professional athletes on their mindset, their approach, their workouts, dealing with high-pressure situations, and building good habits. And we actually have a little bit of a behind-the-scenes video here to give you a little taste before Trevor comes to the stage.
One of the top consultants in the field of mental conditioning and sports psychology. He's worked with top programs like Alabama and Florida State. He's worked with some of the best NFL players, including Russell Wilson.
I've been training down in San Diego, trying to get my mind ready. I'm a mental coach, Trevor Moawad.
Moawad says he motivates the motivated, bringing high-level athletes to a new level of peak performance.
It's crossed for Altidore.
Winston hurdles inside the 10, sidestep to tackler, and dives to the end zone.
Our time. Baseball is going to come down to 4 elements. You got to execute, you got to recover, you got to have your plan, and at the end of the day, you got to trust it.
The United States leads 1-0.
What you tell yourself and what you think is 10 times more powerful than what anybody else thinks about you.
Holy mackerel! What a play! Gets there and scores for the USA! Touchdown! Alabama back on top.
Right now, start with you. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Nothing happens by accident.
Okay, so how do you motivate the motivated? Let's find out from Trevor Moawad. Welcome him to the Seattle 4 podium.
And I got $100 for anybody who still actually really knows what it is I do. Well, it's exciting. I want to thank Joel and the people at Morgan Stanley for suggesting the opportunity to do this. I was raised in Washington State, lived here till I was 17 years old. I've spent the majority of my life now in the southeast of the United States, so I apologize for my accent. I'm hoping to, now that I've moved back to the West Coast, that I will start talking like I'm from Washington State at some point again. But it's an honor, it's an opportunity. It was amazing. After the rabbi went, I almost wanted to just walk up and said what he said. Was powerful, and you get together in an environment like this, and I can't tell you how important it is to do the things that you're doing right now. People, as much as technology's advanced, and in the sports world, it's the five-star athletes that are bigger, faster, stronger, and kinetic, and can do so many things. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to, when it comes to the highest level of performance, and for us, our ROI, if you take a look at Alabama in the last 9 years, the average net operating income for the school has gone up $78 million per year. It's big business, it's big sports. My wife, who's from New Hampshire, the first time she went down to Alabama and sat in a game, she just said, "What's wrong with these people?" Normal doctors and regular people, that something seems to happen to them when kickoff starts. And although when I was in this state, it was a sonic town, I've certainly seen that the same thing that's driven the Alabama people has started to take over the 12s here in Seattle, and it's been something that's pretty amazing to see the last 3 years that I've been able to spend more time up here, spending a lot of time with Russell throughout the season. But the relationships, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. How we are in the locker room, how our coaches get along with our players, how we view success. A lot of times the exact same people can be faced with the same situation and view it completely differently. We look at pressure as a privilege. We look at adversity as an opportunity, and we know that we're ultimately going to be defined in the present. No matter what we've done in the past, our last quarter doesn't matter. It sets the tone, and whatever we did, it's going to have to be significantly better going forward. So it's a unique opportunity and exciting. My father, I was raised in Lakewood, Washington. I went to Charles Wright Academy. When I spent some time with Morgan Stanley, I said I'd like to do more things in the community up here. This state meant a lot to my father. He was with the governor, was the second person to address the state at the Puyallup Fairgrounds after 9/11, and what this state's done for our family and for us, it means a lot to us. And he was a longtime teacher at Clover Park and Central Kitsap, and is in the Hall of Fame in the state as a basketball coach. And my mom went to University of Washington, and my father went to Central Washington. So again, I'm excited. It's interesting growing up the son of the president of the National Association for Self-Esteem, if you even knew that existed. And my brother is here as well. He's a great realtor for John L. Scott, and we both survived this environment. But it was really a fascinating environment. People always ask me what it was like to grow up in the positive thinking world, almost like the son of Archie Manning, and to be Peyton and Eli when it comes to this type of thing. But I think what challenges the industry I work in, people always ask me, do you expect this to grow? Sports psychology and self-help and peak performance and all these things. I don't ever expect the industry to grow. It's very small, it's very niche, and a lot of what I've done over the years, I've worked for a big sports agency called IMG. We manage talent, and I've spent 70% of my time in the sports business world, about 30% in the peak performance, and even though I'm one of the best people in the world, I think I'm competing against maybe 7 people. So it's a small world, and it's an interesting world, and I think the biggest challenge is it's hard to see the way we think. It's hard to understand culture. We can feel it, and most of the time we recruit for it to the degree that we can build it. But what you'll notice is the best communities, the best coaches, the best leaders are really striving to get more out of the same people. And what I learned in my environment growing up was I never learned about the power of positive thinking. I was taught the power of non-negative thinking. And it's a lot easier to control non-negativity than it is to control positivity. And even growing up with these principles, and I would go to bed at night and they would read affirmations. I'd listen to Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and all sorts of, I didn't know what I was listening to. It was a fascinating way to grow up, and waves that had cybernetic something that was happening in them. Growing up that way and doing well in school, obviously going to one of the top colleges and playing 2 sports and all those things, even understanding all that, it wasn't till I got sick as a sophomore in college at 106-degree temperature, had to drop out of college. They weren't sure what had happened to me. At the time, they thought I had cancer. I was 18. This was 1992. I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't know what any of these things meant. And I got on an Alaska Airlines flight, and I called my mom and dad and said, I need to come home. I've got some adversity I'm dealing with, and I don't want to tell you about it on the phone. I flew to Seattle and got in about 11 o'clock at night. My mom and dad, truly proving that they loved me, missed the flight or overslept, so I was stuck at SeaTac till 6 in the morning. And at 18 years old, as a sophomore in college, I think that to me is when my life began, and that I understood that the principles that I was taught and that I grew up understanding, the power of non-negativity and positivity, when you're sick, they don't feel optional. You know, when we're working in our relationships and our marriages and our business life, they feel like some days we can be more that way, other days, but when you feel like your life's on the line, there's no margin for error, and you get your mind right quickly. And even if you do it, it's no guarantee. And so one of the first things I say when I get into an audience, I did the New Day TV show this morning, and it's fascinating to be in my industry. The first thing one of the speakers, a doctor, a talented doctor that I was working with, said, so do you believe in like the Bull Durham stuff, like lucky underwear? And I said, well, I do. That's probably why we've won more national championships. I think the underwear we wear at Alabama is critical to what we do. But that's sort of the problem with this industry. We really don't understand it. And to me, even growing up in it, I didn't understand it. But man, when I thought I could die, I understood it. And I went away from negativity quickly. I didn't focus on all the things that could happen. I focused on a lot of the other things. So I want to do a couple specific activities with you. And people always ask me about Russell everywhere I go. And Russell's probably the 12th quarterback I had an opportunity to start working with, 5 number 1 quarterbacks overall before I got to Russell. And I'm always surprised because people say, did you expect this to happen? There's no way I expected what Russell has done to happen. To be the winningest quarterback in pro football history in his first 4 years at 5 feet 10 and 1/8 inches. Nobody has ever played at that height before, and nobody will ever play after. It's astounding, and being at the programs at Alabama, we're expected to do that. Florida State, we're expected to do that. What Russell's done has exceeded every expectation I would ever had, and it's indicative of 2 concepts I kind of want to hit on today. And first of all, successful people do what unsuccessful people don't like to do. There's no magic, and when we understand the habits, that when we form a habit, that habit forms us. And one of the most powerful things we have is the way we interpret events and the way we talk to ourselves. And if you look at I'm going to force you to do something. I was with UCLA football, Alabama football, and Florida State football in the last 4 days. I really don't want to talk for 15 more minutes, so I'm going to make you do some things. So we're going to, as the rabbi said, I'm going to challenge you to have a little chutzpah. So if everybody grabs that handout, if you have a handout in the middle, okay, put your glasses on. Put your glasses on if you need to, but I want you to turn to the back page of that handout, and I want everybody to grab a pen. I want everybody to grab a pen. And I'm going to put you through an activity, and this is something that we do every week at the University of Alabama. And we want to understand the power of how our minds work and the way they work and the way they operate. So look on the very back page. You're going to have 3 different sections that have the numbers 1 through 100. I know what some of you are thinking. I would have taken my Ritalin if I knew we were going to do something like this today. I apologize, but I'm going to force you to do something. All right, when I say When I say go, you're going to look where it says test 1. You're going to look at the first sheet on the left. We're going to do a little activity. And probably one of the biggest game changers in the people who are able to stay on top for the longest periods of time is the ability to think about the right thing at the right time, which we would loosely define as concentration. And there's nothing bigger than that. We know that a great athlete, an elite performer, an elite business person, 80% of the time they can stay in the moment, 10% in the past, 10% in the future. The average recreational performer, 30% of the time they're in the moment, 40% in the past, 30% in the future. Very hard to be successful in that type of environment. So when I say go, I will give you a starting number. I might say the number 52. You have to find 52 and put an X through it and find as many numbers in consecutive descending order. Now, I don't want to repeat myself. This isn't the Elks Club. I got the Rotary, okay? So I expect high expectations, but when I say go, I'll give you a starting number and you find as many numbers in consecutive descending order. Don't do what you did in college. Keep your eye on your own paper. And I will tell you every 10 seconds and we'll go for 30 seconds. So if I say 58, 58, then 57, then 56, you can't cross out 56 until you crossed out 57. Nod your head if it makes sense. All right, so we will start now in consecutive descending order where it says test 1 on the far left with the number 98 and go. Very good, and stop. Please count up how many X's you got, and on the bottom, write that score. Now I need everybody to get a partner. Turn to somebody next to you. Turn to somebody next to you. Give them a quick handshake. You don't need to go through your summer plans, but a quick hello. If you need a partner, go to a different table. Don't be afraid to go to a different table. Now, Greg, you can jump in, or Joel, you can jump in here. Now this time we're going to do the exact same exercise, eyes up, except for this time the first partner is going to lean over his or her shoulder and you're going to count for them. And at the end of the 30 seconds, we'll have a new starting number. At the end of the 30 seconds, you'll tell your partner you were able to cross out 6, or you're able to cross out 8, or damn. Okay, whatever you need to say, but you will tell them at the end of the 30 seconds how many they crossed out, and then you'll switch and the other partner will go. So the first, raise your hand if you're gonna watch first. Okay, the other person is going. This time we will start with the number 71 and go. 71, don't count out loud, 71. Very good, and stop. Please tell your partner how many he or she was able to get. Okay, very quickly, and last time, find a different partner. Take 30 seconds, find a different partner quickly, and you're going to go on test 3, a different partner. Interactive today, interactive. Okay, now this time, your job is to distract your partner from successfully finding the number. All right, now, you cannot block their vision. We have human resources people here. You cannot touch anybody, okay? No 4-letter words or discussions of mothers, but anything else is fair game to distract them, to try to get them to think about something different. Okay, so one partner will be going, the other partner will be whispering, or whatever it takes, I said chutzpah, okay, to try to distract them from finding the number. First partner up, this time starting with the number 40 and go. You can have it queued up. Pause. Okay, this time, next partner up. You took that bad trash, you got to give it back 10 times more powerful. This time, starting with the number 22 and go. 22. Okay. Now, how many times did each of you do this exercise? 3 times. And the task was to find numbers in consecutive descending order. Nothing changed with the task. So even though you had to do the same thing 3 separate times, how many of you found that your results were a little bit different? Okay, how many did best the first time? Just gave you the numbers. How many did worse with somebody watching you even though they didn't say anything? How many of you could actually feel them watching you and were thinking that now they know you suck at concentrating? How many of you did better having somebody watch you? How many, for whatever reason, did better with somebody talking trash in your face? Interesting. I don't know what that means. How many of you did a little worse? I saw one over there like, how do you know about that? Wait a minute, what number am I at? In all seriousness, there's a couple really, this exercise, this activity was developed in the early 70s in the former Soviet Union. As we found out later, they were doing a lot of different things to help their athletes, but they did spend a lot of time psychologically on developing. They had satellite Olympic camps, and they spent a lot of time on building mental strength. And the only thing that changed in this exercise was the environment. And the environment always changes. The business environment, the culture, the political environment, the family environment. We know in the sports world, we're on the road, we're at home. Our average environment is, we'll play in 97,000 people. And we know a couple basic things about your mind, and I want to, before I close, I want to hit on these things, because the first thing we do to start our season, to start our summer, is go through the fundamentals of thinking. How many of you in here talk to yourself? How many of you think just at some level, at the subconscious level, you talk to yourself? I see a few in the back going, I don't think I talk to myself. If I was her, I'd talk to myself too. We actually all talk to ourselves, and they estimate it somewhere between 800 to 1,400 words a minute. So we know for us in an average 2 to 3 hour game, our players are going to say at the subconscious level about 175,000 things to themselves. And it could be no matter what. There's nothing you could do, like, hey, I want that Jack Bauer guy just to shut up so I can finish my food. You're not going to be able to stop talking to yourself. There are certain immutable, universal truths that affect all of us. You don't need to believe them. It's like gravity. Gravity does not need me to buy into it to impact me. I don't need to study physics to be impacted. So we have this dialogue. Now what we know is while we have this dialogue, we can only think about one thing at a time. It's called the law of substitution. That's it. So for us, if it's a quarterback, we go through, it's probably usually 4 simple things, trigger thoughts that we're trying to focus on. And it could be looking for my receiver's hips to break. It could be, as an Olympic, I spent time with 3 Olympic teams getting ready for Rio. For many years, I had a chance to be with Michael Johnson, the Olympic gold medalist. He would keep a note card, and it had 4 things on it. And his philosophy was, if I go into a grocery store without a list, I struggle. If I go into the Olympics without a list, I'll probably struggle too. Okay, and with 3 billion people watching on TV, 100,000 things, he'd keep his focus, head down, pump my arms, explode. Okay, and the discipline to own that one thought. So we have this dialogue, and as soon as that thought shifts to what somebody else is thinking, I can't be in the moment because I can only think about one thing at a time. Now for me, when I went through health challenges, or for other people, it becomes very powerful, and those internal thoughts are given 10 times the power when we verbalize them. There's a great video, and then I'll post it on our website, of the great baseball player Bill Buckner, who's remembered for letting this game-winning run score on a ground ball through his legs. He was interviewed 12 days before the start of the World Series, and he said, I don't want to be the guy that lets the game-winning run score on a ground ball through my legs. Okay? There's many examples. Pistol Pete Maravich, the great basketball player, died when he died in his early 40s. He had said in an interview at 26, I don't want to play 10 years of pro basketball and die on a pickup court at the age of 40. He played 10 years of pro basketball, and in Pasadena, California, died on a pickup basketball court. There's a golfer, Mac McClendon, 1989, just before the start of the Masters, saying, I'm playing so bad, I think I'm going to hit somebody. That's what he tells his wife just before his first hole shot, hit her and knocked her unconscious. There's another story I have about a guy who got locked inside a refrigerated boxcar in Russia. He started to panic. He couldn't get anybody's attention. He found a pen, started writing what he's thinking. I'm becoming colder, still colder now. Half asleep, I can hardly write. They opened the boxcar many hours later. He was dead. The temperature, 56 degrees. The freezing apparatus was broken. There was plenty of air, We have great doctors in the audience. There was no physical reason for his death. The only thing they could say was that somehow he had talked himself into dying. The difference between the great athletes and the great performance is they stay in the present, and they limit. Everybody has watched that NFC championship game where Russell was having the worst football game that he'd had since he was 9 years old. He never went negative. That's what's most impressive about him, not the fact that he's positive. He was playing a horrible game. We have an interesting political climate. Sometimes our family situations, life is not going to stop for business. Life does not stop for sports. We lost our first game in 18 games at the University of Alabama. Our coach sign had 80 for sale signs on his lot. Nobody could leave and even go out of their houses as coaches. We've had to evacuate kickers when we lose, and we never lose. So we embrace the expectations, and we think pressure is a privilege. But we also have the discipline. If you say and complain about the heat at Alabama, you're fined. If you complain about anything, you're fined. We have eliminated all negativity. Just not allowed. If you can be positive, great. A lot of times that's hard to do. But we don't allow negativity because negativity is 10 times more powerful than positivity. They're two separate schemes of the line. They're two separate things. Positive and less positive. Negative and less negative. Think of it as a crowd. I'm walking down the final stretch. I got 50 people cheering. That's positive. I got 50 people booing. No matter how much more I cheer, it's not as powerful as lessening the boos, and when I lessen the boos, I don't even need to cheer that much. And that's what we verbalize. And the best, when I'm always asked, what's the one common denominator between Nick Saban or Pete Carroll? I work at the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. In that environment, they're all the same. They have limited negativity and practice the power of non-negativity. It's a crazy concept, but it's something I challenge you to think about. Anybody can talk about what might be happening or what might not be happening. I want to show a video to close, but I want to help you understand what Gallup is saying. When we look at the average team and we look at the average business right now, we're seeing that 26% of people are engaged. That's a struggle. 55% are not engaged. And 19% are actively disengaged. So when we look at the leaders, the people in this room, your job is to change that ratio. And when I sit in a coaching meeting at Alabama or Florida State or in a briefing in the military, it's easy to talk about all the things going wrong and how we'd like to fix every employee, or we want new employees, or how we'd like them to play in traffic, whatever it might be in the particular day. But we know that if we just complain about what's going on, we're going to get fired. And I've been fired twice. It's tough. I was with Michigan. They came into the locker room after we lost to Ohio State. We all got fired. And it was because we didn't get it done, and we didn't solve problems. And in the sports world, you have to solve problems because everybody can see the score. So that's a challenging ratio. So for those of you in here, I can't necessarily get the 19% to 26, but how do I keep moving people up there? How do I keep affecting change? I want to show the video that we showed Russell to start this season. Everybody knows last season didn't end 2 years ago didn't end the way we wanted. I want you to see the video that we showed him to start this season.
Most people go through life quietly and safely tiptoeing to an early grave. We've been holding back. We have ideas that we don't act on, things we want to do. We're afraid to take chances. See, a lot of people say no to things, and they don't even know what they're saying no to. Don't allow but to keep you in the corner. There are a lot of people who say, but I tried once or twice, and it didn't work out. And so they use that as an excuse not to ever come out again. Even if I experience defeat or failure, that does not make me a failure. There's a difference between failing and being a failure. Things don't work out if you don't produce the results you want, that's all. But don't confuse who you are with the results that you produce. Do what you can, where you are with what you have, and never be satisfied. Don't get satisfied with yourself. Always know that wherever you are, you can enjoy more, that you deserve more. Why don't you decide now that you're going to expand your world, that if other people can learn, you can learn too. See, if you're working on your dream, sure there are going to be times you're going to want to give up. Sure there'll be times in life will knock you down and catch you on the blind side. But the challenge is to hold on. And if you hold on tenaciously, I say the universe is on your side. See, if you don't decide to act on your dream, if you don't decide to make a decision to live your life, if you don't decide to step into your fears, if you don't decide to say yes to your life, it will never work for you. So if you want to do something, if you thought about something you want to do, take it head on. And life will never be the same again. Live your dream.
Pretty powerful message. Thank you. I just want to close with a couple things. Our biggest goal was stepping into our fears, knowing that we weren't going to be defined by one play. You're accountable for it and you're responsible for it. And everybody's always surprised with, and I've done NFL Network and all the different radio shows, and were you surprised? You are responsible for what's happened. Personally, professionally, when things don't go right. But you also have complete control of what you're going to be going forward. That's the beauty that we all have. And I take a look at Tiger and having a chance to watch that and be with IMG as that started to fall apart. And it was somebody who had the best habits and discipline you'd ever seen who began to lose that. And no matter how talented and how much aptitude we have, if we don't do the right things that our profession demands in business, if we don't have the right pipeline, we don't make the right calls, we don't take care of ourselves, then we're going to be accountable to the rules of life. And I close with this story. One of the stories I heard when in the early 90s, and it was one of the top magazine entrepreneurs in the world. And he was talking about, at a Toastmaster special, he was talking about being raised by a single mom and struggling and almost failing out of high school before he had ever become one of the leading magazine entrepreneurs. And he was about to get kicked out, but he promised his mother he would take a test called the SAT. And at that point in the early 80s, it was out of 1,600 points. He takes the SAT in May, and in June, he gets his score back and scored a 1480 out of 1,600. Well, the first thing his mom did, being a great mother and knowing her son, is, did you cheat? And he said, I did everything I could to cheat, but the way the spacing was and the bubbles on the Scantron, I couldn't cheat. So she said, you mean to tell me you're really this smart? He says, Mom, I don't know how else to explain it. What I know is I didn't cheat. I answered all the questions. She was stunned. He was stunned. He's still enrolled as a senior, and he says, if I'm this smart, I guess I'll go to class. Now he starts going to class. He hangs out with a whole different group of people than he did when he didn't go to class. Well, teachers see him in class. They start to treat him differently as well. Anyways, he graduates, goes to community college in Kansas called Hutch Community College, goes to Wichita State, goes on to the Ivy League, and comes on to be one of the top magazine entrepreneurs. You say, well, always clearly he had the aptitude. He said, no, the real story started 12 years later. I'm at my house. We get a letter in the mail from Princeton, New Jersey. I don't think much about it. My wife says, are you going to open it? I open it. Well, it turns out the SAT board will periodically review test-taking procedures and policies. The year he took the test, he was one of 13 people sent the wrong score. His actual score was a 740 out of 1,600. And he said, my whole life didn't change when I got a 1480. My whole life changed when I began acting like a 1480. And what does a 1480 do? He goes to class. Alabama football is not about five-star players. It's not about talent. It's about the habits of our organization. We have a coach who's 65 years old. I've never seen anybody more voracious or insatiable about learning. Our players come in and they understand a process. You will not see signs about national championships. You will not see any outcome goals. Everything is process. We are focused on process. I went to Arizona State to visit one of my coaching buddies last year. I saw 45 signs of national championships. That reminded me that they're not winning one anytime soon. And everything is not about what we do, it's about how we do it and why we do it. And that's my challenge to you. As good as you are, you can get better. And if things haven't gone the way you wanted them to go, then you can make changes and adjustments to the habits you're behind and take it to another level going forward. So I'm excited to be back here. I'm excited to get to spend more time in Washington. I'm excited to now say that I'm a 12-2, and I'm really excited to see what Russ and the rest of the crew are going to do this upcoming season. So thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome. Do we have time? We have 3 minutes, Trevor.
3 minutes?
For a Q&A. And I think that's your phone.
You want to go ahead and pick some people?
Question over here from Nancy.
Thank you very much. You talked about controlling your conscious thoughts during the day and maintaining a positivity, but what about those dreams at night when you can't control what's going on in your head and you wake up in the morning with that fog of some sort of failure?
Well, what we know is that when I verbalize a thought, it has 10 times the power. So it's harder. That's a different battle there, and imagery, visualization, eidetic imagery, affirmations. There are ways that you can go about changing from the inside out. And so for us, it's really about developing an ad campaign. The NFL is an $11 billion industry, $9 billion which comes from advertising. We know that advertising works. I can tell you 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. I don't even know why I know that. It's an advertising campaign. So what we've tried to do to deal with what you're talking about a little bit is develop an ad campaign for a player, because my own ad campaign is 10 times more powerful than anything outside. Even as a parent, I can only give so much insight.
So do the Seattle Mariners have a mental problem with the Texas Rangers, or is it an athletic problem with the Texas Rangers?
Well, I think one of the things that you see with them now, and I don't follow them too much, but I have a very good relationship with their best player as well. Seattle's best player, and I knew him from years in New York. And I think the biggest thing is how you deal with adversity. They have some injuries, and other players have an opportunity to step up, and they're not playing very well. So, but you know what? It's 162 games. We'll see what they do. And you don't have 12s here, but I encourage the people in Seattle to hang in there with them a little bit longer.
Thank you, Trevor. I'm kind of hoping I might have been one of those that received the wrong SAT test. I got kicked out of Bluebirds in grade school, primarily for refusing to wear the matching blue uniforms. Realizing I was not in a joiner phase, my parents' next move was physical activity, more an individual sport. Gymnastics was it. My coach, Ms. Helen Wickwalter, struck an impressive balance between expectation and fear. For example, she believed all her students were limber enough to do the splits, so she would literally sit on us to make her point. That said, Ms. Wickwalter challenged me to strive. Learning backflips requires a spotter's hand. Despite my doubts, her spotting hand got gradually lighter. One day, she knew I was ready. Rather than warning me, Ms. Wickwalter simply removed her hand. Striving is craving what lies beyond. See you next week.